Welcome back to part 2 of What If Padme Joined Vader on Mustafar. Thank you to those of you who watched the first part of this video. To recap what happened in that part, in case you haven't seen it, Vader had carried out his master's orders and killed the Jedi and the remainder of the Separatist Alliance. Padme joining him had saved him from the burns in his duel with Obi-Wan, and the Emperor had been so furious that she had survived, they entered into a furious duel, resulting in a force explosion. Vader woke up in unfamiliar surroundings, but quickly identified it to be similar to the clone barracks. As his eyes still burned a sickly yellow, the former Jedi had not forgotten about Palpatine and ran outside to find the legion of the newly conscripted stormtroopers, pointing their blasters in his direction. The Sith summoned his lightsaber from the belt of one of the Imperials and threw it in a perfect arc to decapitate them all, then went to the giant screen that all of the other troops had gathered around. Palpatine appeared to stand in front of the remainder of the Senate and brought Padme to the booth to speak on his behalf. Vader looked in anger as Palpatine used a form of Sith persuasion to twist Padme's mind as she denounced any politician daring to oppose the regime. The Sith apprentice clenched his fist again, and this time the figure of Palpatine crackled and distorted as the coverage disappeared into a small fireball. The shocked troops turned around as Vader stood on top of the tallest platform, and they responded by firing at him. He seamlessly deflected the gunfire with supreme confidence, then dragged a massive generator onto all of the attackers to crush them, before running to the hangar. The area was filled with some of the newest prototype vehicles, and he took one of them out of the training complex to hunt down Palpatine. The apprentice glanced at his navigational computer and found he had just left the planet of Kamino before heading for Coruscant. As he flew the lengthy journey to the Imperial Palace, Vader glanced at his radar and saw a group of TIE fighters streaking towards him, and he knew the Emperor wanted him to die alongside the Jedi. Using all of his skills harnessed on Tatooine, the former slave ducked and weaved to confuse the pursuers, then fired the front-mounted turrets to maximum effect, taking out 3 of the pilots. But more continued to descend upon his location, and as he approached the coordinates of the planet, an entire blockade stood in his path. Vader felt something extremely powerful in the Force, and the distraction enabled the Star Destroyer to strike a critical hit on the hull of the ship, and the Sith wrestled control as he crashed into the destroyer. Jumping from the canopy before the inevitable collision, Vader ignited his blade and sliced through his attackers, before choking one of the officers on the bridge to ask for the location of Padme and Palpatine. The poor officer clutched and gasped for air, then revealed that he did not know their current location other than a mention of the planet of Biss. The recently discovered planet had been one the Jedi had regarded as off limits, due to the strong connection with the dark side, and Vader redirected the destroyer to the deep galactic core. Through the dangerous hyperlane known as the Biss Run, Vader used a security code on board to pass through, and hovered above the bright and colourful atmosphere. The Sith apprentice left the controls and ran to the force presence he had felt earlier, and he turned a number of corridors to the medical area, finding his children in Luke and Leia. Padme had given birth shortly after he had duelled his master, but the Emperor had awoken first to take the children from the Senator, seeking to expose them to the dark side and fulfill what their father could not. Vader's eyes became demonic with rage, and he ignored the advice of the medical droids inside of the room to take the children for himself and place them in escape pods to safety, and as a guarantee that Palpatine could not use them. Entering into a ship to the surface, Vader swooped vertically to the citadel of the Emperor and docked beside the tall structure before barging inside. Palpatine had been seated in his throne when he felt Vader arriving on the planet, and as the apprentice stood in front of his steps, he was almost impressed by his efforts. Vader ignited his blade again and pointed it at Palpatine, demanding to know the location of Padme, but he merely cackled and leapt out of the room as he used the Force to cave in the building. Vader used all of his dark side powers to try and shield himself, but he could not stop the chain reaction of detonations, and he fell into a heap. A short while later, he felt the rubble above him move, and he opened his eyes to see Padme. Palpatine had underestimated the Senator, as she had cleverly escaped the capture of the Imperial troopers, and she had overheard them discussing the fate of Vader. Padme fired at various joints in the debris, and eventually Vader stood to his feet so they set about leaving the planet, controlled by the total might of the Empire. That is it for part 2 of what if Padme joined Vader on Mustafar. If you'd like to see a part 3 soon, please like this video, turn on that notification bell, click that subscribe button on this channel, as well as on my other channel whilst it films. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd all like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.